Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Do you wish to wake up one day and hit the life reset button? Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine, helps you navigate crucial life areas, heal the past traumas, and cultivate fulfilling relationships and careers. Life Reset is your guide to a profound journey to reshape your life. Grab your copy on Amazon or Audible now and embark on a path to a more joyous and fulfilled life.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine, psychotherapist, author, and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today for what I promise you to be a really insightful discussion, and really, really close to my heart, to my age, and what myself and many of my clients who I talk to go through. So today I will be chatting with Dr. Corinne Auman. She's a trailblazer in the field of aging and the founder of Choice Care Navigators, a company dedicated to helping families navigate the aging process. Corinne is dedicated to fostering personal growth, resilience, and authentic living at every age. With a background in developmental psychology, Corinne's passion lies in reshaping how we perceive older adulthood, a vision she beautifully encapsulates in her groundbreaking book, Keenagers. Yes, Keenagers. You can definitely find her at CorinneAuman.com. We spoke about what the society has been thinking about aging, how we have way aged beyond, 65 or 67 to living an average of 90 years, and how much these years are so different from each other, what it takes from us to plan our next phase of life and the next 30 years, 20, 30 years of our life, what it takes to let go of some of the things that we were doing to our children and caregivers, and what happens with the caregivers and what they go through, as they shift their role from our children to our caretakers. So very insightful, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it. Now, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, my YouTube channel, and connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, or any of my social media platforms. Share your thoughts with me because I love, love, love to hear from you. Be sure to go to foojan.com or Foojan app. Get the Foojan app. We've got about 31 areas of life where you can really look into and reflect. And we also have Mira, which is an AI chatbot, which answers your questions, all from the awareness integration perspective. Now, without further ado, here's Dr. Corinne Auman.
Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, and decrease depression. Dr. Foojan Zeine's Awareness Integration Theory has helped thousands like you get incredible life-changing results. The Foojan app gives you her evidence-based treatment in the palm of your hand. Download today.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Dr. Manoukian, three experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now.
It is so nice to have you with us, Corinne Auman, Dr. Corinne Auman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. You have written about aging, your book, Keenager. I love that, by the way. How did you come up with Keenager?
So that's quite a story, actually. when I was trying to write the book and talk about aging in a positive way, I realized very quickly that it is really difficult to find almost any positive language around growing older. We've got lots of negative words, but we don't have very many positive ones. My local senior center has just renamed itself the Active Agers Center because they're trying to, be positive, but it's really difficult. So a friend of mine, we're sitting around one day and I'm like, I need a word to call older adults that is positive and that is going to have positive connotations to it. And she called her mom and said, "Hey, Mom, what do you and your friends want to be called?" And she said, "Oh, we call ourselves Keenagers with a K." And it's like a word that a lot of church groups use for their senior citizens. And she loved it. She and her friends loved it. And I thought that's a really great word because keen itself means like you're keen to do things, you're interested in the world, you're keen to be engaged and involved. And in some ways it means cool, right? So the teenagers just had a positive connotation to it that I just don't think we have a lot of associated with growing older. And so that's why I'm using it. It's not something I came up with myself originally, but the terminology is it's not widespread at this point.
So in a month, no, in probably less than a month, in about 3 weeks, I will be 63.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously a lot of conversations about aging has shown up. One angle of it has been that I've lost both of my parents. Also, I'm sensing all of the people who are at my own age. Now they're looking at different angles. From the psychological perspective, obviously they're looking at whether, they're going to have retirement or not. Some of them have already gone, like my husband has already gone through retirement and then right back into working 14 to 16 hours under the name of retirement, which, that we have our own businesses. And I've seen a lot of my friends, which either some of them chose, yes, I'm going to go into completely retirement and I'm not going to go and, work. Obviously, they're busy in so many other ways. Then there's a conversation of grandparenting. And then there's a conversation of, people who are around us one by one are experiencing different types of just, not even, necessarily illnesses, but just parts of this concept of aging illnesses. There's so much. And obviously, as I'm aging, my clientele, as you know, I'm a therapist, so my clientele are aging with me, right? Like if I used to see teenagers, if I used to see young adults, now a lot more of a kind of my own age group are seeking me out and coming to me. So this concept of ageism has been in my face for almost, let's say, around 10 years. Like starting with 50, this conversation started. And it started with losing, collagen on your face and everything kind of drooping. This becoming so much of a matter, how I look. And then it's my memory is not as sharp. My energy is not as sharp. Then it was like, oh, I got to get used to this level of working and having this type of energy, being spent. And it's like, there are things that we have to adjust. And I love it that you also calling it teenagers, because when I was a teenager, almost every year I had to adjust to something new. And life as I knew it was completely different. Every time I went from a 13 to a 14 to a 15 to a 16 years old. And I'm experiencing right now, as I go to 55, 50, 55, 60, 65, and moving forward, it's almost like I have to get adjusted to a whole new world again. So I'm really interested in your conversation.
Well, we really all should be thinking about our aging and what's coming, what there is that's going to change, and what there is to look forward to as we get older. I think we have this kind of concept in our mind. And again, this goes back to our language. Once we get to be 60, 65, we just call everybody an older adult, right? If you're 65, we call you an older adult. If you're 95, we call you an older adult. There is no other time span in life when you would take two groups of people who are 30 years apart and call them the same thing and act as though they're supposed to be the same people. Because we know that 65 is not the same as 95. We are continuing to develop and to change. This stereotype that, older people don't change, their personalities don't change, that's not true at all. Like, we are continuing to develop and change. Our interests change. We might start a new job, start new hobbies, all kinds of things that continue to develop as we get older. But our language says, oh no, everybody's the same once you get past 65. And kind of our stereotypes about it do too. And like, to your point, yeah, you're really different, from 50 to 55 to 60 to 65. There's a lot of things happening, and we don't just become adults and then stop developing. We continue to change throughout our lifespan.
There was a recent research that came up which says you age kind of like drastically in two certain ages, which is one was about 44, another one was about 60, 62. And I could yes. When I woke up one day at 42 and my 20/20 eyesight was completely gone and I had to wear glasses, like one day I just woke up. And I can tell you at 60 and 62, kind of like, this past year, for the first time, I'm experiencing pain in my body that I've never experienced before. And it's an ongoing pain. So it has it has completely shifted the way that I've been with my body, where at one point, I wouldn't even think of it. It was a vehicle to take me places. It was fine. It was doing its job. So come on, let's do it. Now it's like this different level of respect that is like, oh, okay, I hear you. I need to take care of you in a whole different way. And it's interesting where, from a psychological place, I feel the happiest that I've ever been in my life. I feel clear. I feel so like I got it. I got where I need to be, where I need to zoom. I'm not disturbed by many of the other noises. It's very clean. And it's like, okay, I only got 15 more days, 20 more years to do this. I'm just in tune with exactly what I'm doing. And then yet there's a different respect to my body and the love. I've never experienced this type of love that I've created for my body as it goes through pain. It's like, it's okay. I actually caress it. It's such a different experience that I'm having with myself that I've never had before.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have an appreciation for your body that you said it earlier, you kind of just took it for granted, and you kind of, you didn't really think that much about it. And now you have an appreciation for it and everything it's doing for you on a day-to-day basis. And you're thinking about it a lot more. The happiness thing that you mentioned is actually, there's research on this in terms of people report being the happiest in their 60s and 70s of any time period in their life. And there's actually the U curve of happiness is what the researchers call it. And so we're pretty happy when we're young adults and, we don't have a lot of responsibilities and things like that. And then we get into midlife when there's a lot of, work and raising children and all the things that go on. And then we get to older adulthood, to those teenager years when our kids are grown and we maybe aren't as busy at work, or we're thinking about retirement, or we're retired. And those are the years that people report the highest levels of happiness, which is directly contradictory to our stereotypes about that, older adults ought to be depressed, right? We somehow think when we're younger that older people ought to be depressed just because they're old, as if that is some sort of, tragedy in and of itself. But no, that is not what the research shows us at all. So I completely validate your experience. That is what most people report, is that they're happiest in that time period.
So from a developmental psychologist perspective, what is it that we need in this developmental stage? Like, obviously people are unique in what they need, but, from a perspective of each stage of our life, there are things that any human being and anywhere in the world with any culture still, from that perspective, owns, wants, desires, and has a healthy kind of a behavior set that could be for that specific stage of life. Could you share that with us?
So I don't know that it's unique to older adulthood. In fact, I know it's not unique to older adulthood, but I don't think we think about this very clearly when we're younger. You still need purpose or meaningful activity, even in retirement years. Even if nobody wants to work a 40-hour work week until, they're on death's doorstep. So retirement, it can be really good for people. But retirement with no purposeful activity can actually send you downhill in terms of your health, your social well-being. That can kind of send you into a depression. If you retire, most people retire and they have a little honeymoon period where they're so happy that they're not working that 40-hour work week. And then after that honeymoon period, they start to go, well, wait a minute, I may have another 20 years ahead of me. What am I going to do with that time? And we need to find something that gives our life meaning to fill that time. And sometimes people will joke with me, although they're probably kind of serious, and say, oh, when I retire, I'm going to find my purpose in sitting on the couch and doing nothing. And I get it, because we have this narrative that retirement is your well-earned rest and you shouldn't have any obligations. It should be all relaxation. But unlimited relaxation actually can get kind of boring after a while. You mentioned, I think before we were on air, that, your husband had retired and then went back to work almost immediately. And that is something we see happen over and over again these days, because, retirement literally means to stop working, to cease work. But when we started thinking about retirement, when Social Security was first enacted in the 1930s, the average American lived to 67. So we expected you to retire at 65 and on average live to 67. Now we're living decades beyond that. And so that is a lot of time to, quote, rest. So purpose and meaning in those years becomes very important for your sense of self, for your mental well-being, for your spiritual well-being, for your social well-being. And it can be going back to work if that's what you want to do. It could be starting a new business, but it can also be volunteering, caregiving for your grandchildren, caregiving for aging parents. There's a lot of things that can be that meaningful activity. But we all need something, because when you start to feel like nobody needs you for anything, that doesn't feel good.
Pretty much, yes. And you talked about ageism in society and business. And although, just like you said, I think there's a lot more people, very functional, amazing experiences, way above like 65. But we can also see that businesses have a little bit of a stigma about this. So many times, or as a person gets into that space, that either the corporations are nicely, forcefully kind of bringing the idea about, well, shouldn't be retiring. And somehow, even if there's a reason where you let go, or for some reason you're no longer in that company, finding jobs at that age is, in the corporate world, is almost it's not going to happen, because although they say there's not going to be, the HR makes sure that that's not an issue, but it is. Even if you don't put your age, they look at your resume and kind of see, and then somehow you have to feel shame if you want to, if you're sharp and you still have so much energy and you have so much to give to that industry, for some reason, then, you have to feel like you're shamed and you have to lie about your age in order to get somewhere, And that's why I say it's funny with the teenager and young adult, but usually young adults, because they want to get into clubs and they want to grow older, they start lying about their age. They're 18 and they're like, I'm 21. And then you see the same thing on the other side, as if you have to play down your age in order to prove that you are amazingly functional to be able to go, and be a part of the business industry that you have been for so many years.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it is a valid concern. I mean, there's lots of research that shows that HR managers have age bias, just like all the rest of us. We all have kind of grown up in a culture that is very fearful of aging and anti-aging in a lot of ways. And so that plays into the hiring process. Even if HR managers are specifically, trying not to do it, they still have that bias. And now you're dealing with like AI systems that are screening the resumes and things before they ever even get to a human. And they have the same biases that the programmers who set them up have. So you do have that struggle. There is a movement to do age irrelevant resumes. So resumes that don't have any dates on them, that don't have your date of birth and don't have the year you graduated college on there. But I mean, still, if you have a lot of listed experiences, that may do the same thing. And I've actually seen or talked to several people who, because they couldn't find a job, they got laid off or had to take early retirement for one reason or another, they actually went out and started their own business or started their own side hustle of some kind because they just couldn't find a job that was suitable for them. And that is a real challenge. And it's hard on the older adult worker, but it's also a missed opportunity for a lot of businesses because you are missing out, just like you said, on people who have lots of talent, lots of experience, and lots of energy still to contribute to your business and its development that we're just overlooking based on a number, right? If you've met one 65-year-old, you've met one 65-year-old, and you cannot judge every applicant for a job based just on that number.
Very much, yes. And I know that a lot of people that come to me, we talk about, starting a consulting kind of business for themselves because they've got the wisdom, they've got the know-how. And sometimes it's such a blessing not to be part of the corporate politics and all of it while you have the ability to actually go in and do that. There's some people who get on boards, on different company boards and again, bring their vast amount of experience and wisdom. And the other side of it is that sometimes it's like you have been in one industry for so long that you might just want to try out different things that you've never done. People get into arts, people just get into something that they were always passionate about and never had the opportunity to do it because they had to raise a family and do all of that. And then you'll see, I had one person who, she was a teacher, she was an amazing teacher, and she got retired, and then she used to make this amazing salsa at home where everybody, her family members loved it, and then the neighborhood, and she kept creating these parties and neighborhood parties, and they kept telling her, you should, make this into real product out there. And she did, and she created this amazing manufacturing after that, which was something that she would have never even thought about when, that was starting. So I know that sometimes it takes about 6 months to a year after you come out of a company and your industry to just be with yourself and then allow yourself to kind of explore and go expand yourself into a whole different environment.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. But there's so much possibility that I think when we're younger, we don't think about, and then when we get to that age, we kind of go, what's the game plan here, right? Is it okay for me to start a new business? Is it okay for me to do this new thing? And because we aren't, I always kind of compare it to when we're getting ready to go to college. Like, we spend so much time like prepping high school students for those 4 years of college. Like, it's this big transition and you're going to go do this thing. We don't do any of that for people as they prepare for retirement and shifting into the retirement years. And I really wish we did. I really wish we kind of sat people down and said, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to take 6 months to a year off and, find yourself, kind of like we think about young people doing. And then you're going to go off on this new adventure that can be almost anything you want it to be. What do you want it to be? How can we plan for it? How can we prepare for it? What are your dreams for this next stage?
Yes. And I think that's an amazing process and a transition that we can allow ourselves to get to. Another concept that this group and population mostly has also, they've raised their children, but now their parents also needs them. So they go from becoming a caretaker for their children and now switch, then they become a caretaker for their parents. What are your thoughts about that?
So my day job is as a care manager. So I run a care management agency, and we help adult children typically figure out how to care for their aging parents. And I have many thoughts on this whole process. We are woefully unprepared to address the issues that come up. Mostly, I'm going to tie it back to our fear of aging. There is so much fear of aging that it keeps families from having honest discussions about, here's what I want as I grow older. Here's the retirement community I would like to live in. Or here's how I am financially planning to pay for home care, or any of those things. Because we are so afraid of growing older, we, as a society, bury our heads in the sand and go, la, 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 this aging thing is not going to happen to me. I'm going to grow older, but I'm going to just die warm in my bed and nothing bad is ever going to happen. And we don't talk about it. We don't talk to our adult children. We don't talk to our spouses. We don't plan for our aging. And the consequence of that is that then it goes really poorly, because a typical phone call that I get in that business is, everything was fine. Mom was doing great. She was living on her own until, and then there's been some sort of event, a fall, a heart attack, whatever it is. And now the adult children or the spouse, they're in a total panic because they never talked about it. They don't know mom's finances. They don't know who's going to take care of the house. They don't know what she would want, where she would want to go, or if she would want to be on machines, just all these things that they never talked about because they just pretended like it was never happening. And one of my goals, the book is Keenagers, as we mentioned earlier, but the second title part is telling a new story about aging. And my goal is to get people to think about their older adulthood in a positive way, to look forward to growing older, to look forward to the whole process. Because if we have a positive outlook, those are the families that are calling me way ahead of time. Those are the older adults who are calling me going, we just want to know what our options are. And we just want to know what things are going to cost so we can kind of start to plan financially. And we want to start looking at the retirement communities now because, we don't need it right now, but we know we're probably going to need it in 5-10 years. Those people who are looking ahead, who are looking forward to this process, they're the ones who plan. And they're the ones who talk to their family members. And guess what? Their aging experience is much better because of it. It doesn't mean that they don't have health problems or that things don't go sideways from time to time. But when those things happen, their family is prepared. Their family knows, hey, mom did her healthcare power of attorney. You're in charge of that. I'm in charge of her finances. This is where she said she wanted to get her care, or this is she wants to be at home and this is how we're going to pay for it. They're ready. And so then everybody has a much better experience because of that. And so it's just, I obviously can get on quite a soapbox here about it, because it is just amazing to me the way we say aging is so terrible and it's such a horrible process, but it really is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because it can be terrible and horrible because we don't plan or prepare, and we just kind of sit back and pretend like it's never going to happen, when really it's a positive experience, because the alternative is that we don't age, right? That we just die along the way. So let's look forward to it and let's plan for it so that it can be the best experience you could possibly have, given your circumstances.
Well, there's two pieces into this. As you were sharing, it came to me because of my experience a lot with my clients right now, is that there's a difference between, I think that when people think about their parents, there's a wishful thinking that they will always be my parent and I will always be a child.
Mm-hmm.
So when this role changes, and it doesn't change in one day, that we say, okay, this is my role. I give it to you. Now I'll give you the hat and then you'll give me the hat and we're done. But it's a struggle where I've seen people get angry at their parents for not listening to them while they cannot let go. And I've watched parents who, this is very hard for them. They've been independent. Just the concept of dependency on anyone and their children, it feels devastating to them. I have hours and hours of psychotherapy about the person being afraid of being dependent and going from independency to dependency and having other people making decisions for them while, they have still in a place of they won't. So there's kind of a deterioration phase where the roles have to change. There's a lot that happens that we share and we talk about, and how to hold someone's dignity while you also, having them kind of let go and delegate a lot of what they used to do to people they trust. And as you say, sometimes we have these conversations from before, but there's also a different mindset when you're thinking about, oh, yes, in theory, this is all going to happen in 25, 30 years. And then suddenly it's here and you actually have to give it up. And the fear that shows up for many people of going from one stage of life to another, and then also the adult children, where now they have to take on this responsibility, is as if, okay, I just raised my kids, I'm doing this is time for me. These are my 50, age 50 and stuff. This is my time to take care of myself. And then suddenly, oh, now I have to allocate a lot of caregiving to my parents who are now needing my care. And there's also a transition of resentment and love and the yearning for caring, and all of the stuff that they had from childhood comes up and they need to clear it with their parents. So there's a transition of emotional processing that also happens in this process. Have you had that experience as people are sharing it with you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is a incredibly traumatic emotional experience. And I think that is true even if people have planned, right? Even my families that have done a lot of planning and have been proactive, when that moment comes that it actually has to shift, as you said it is traumatic, because it's a loss. It's a things used to be this way, and now we're going into this new stage and it feels like a loss, right? And my point isn't that that's avoidable in any way. But my point is that when we have talked about these things and prepared for them, it feels way better than when nobody has talked about it. And so not in addition to mom is in the hospital and we're really scared and everything, that may be happening there, all the emotions associated with that. If we've planned and talked about it, there's that. But I kind of have this backpack of, okay, but I know what to do, right? With the stuff, with her finances and different things, versus I'm really upset that mom's in the hospital. And now I have this complete chaos over here of, we never talked about her finances, and I don't know where anything is in the house, and I don't know what she would want. And that emotional upheaval of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because now I have to figure everything else out about her life, in addition to being upset that she's in the hospital and that, something's gone wrong. It makes it a lot worse because you've added to the stress and the chaos of the situation because we just didn't talk about it because we kind of, just hoped it would never happen.
And that's even fine and dandy if you're the only child. When you get
couple siblings in there to fight about it.
They fight about the finances and who's going to take care of her and who should be doing that. You have a whole different ball game to go. One more area that has been coming in my face consistently is a new conversation that I think it's newer than before, which has to do with choosing out. And because it's a lot of states in the United States have become legal. The conversation is that, especially for many of the people that I know, that their parents are going through a lot, whether they're going through harsh dementia or Alzheimer's, or they're going through, very, very hard illnesses, and they watch their parents and they're saying, that's it, I'm not going to go through that pain. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to actually write down exactly when I am at this stage. I'm going to tell my kids that this is where I am at this stage, and they got to let me go, and I'm going to go, and I'm going to find my 2 doctors, and I'm going to do all of, everything in order for me to have a choice and not go through that. Again, in theory, it's really interesting. But the conversation about it, when it goes beyond the fantasy in the head, but the conversation that you have to have with your spouse or you have to have with your children to get everything ready to even you wanting to, let go on your own, it has created a whole different way of conversing and talking about it, and emotional ups and downs that the survivors or the people, the siblings and everybody else goes through. This is very new phenomena that I've heard more, where people are actually looking at an option of choosing when to leave versus before, where one was illegal and there were so many other matters to it that obviously, for people who are still religious and don't accept this, and this is not part of their game, that the conversation might not show up. But I'm sensing more, I'm hearing so much more of this conversation being shared upon and just talked about, even within the system. And again, on a theory, everybody says, yes, I'm going to write it down, I'm going to do this. But when it actually comes to a place of, I'm ready, can we get our 2 doctors? Can everybody sit here? Because I'm going to say hello, goodbye, and I'm going to give you this and this and this. And, and then there is chaos as far as emotions that happens for everyone around. Have you had that experience?
So no, so it's not legal in North Carolina where I'm at. So it's not really come up as an issue, but it does come up in the sense of people when they have loved ones who are experiencing a long, slow decline of some kind. There are discussions about we wish it was legal here, or we wish there was a choice, or people should have a choice, things like that. And again, I think that's all very theoretical because, like you said, it's one thing to have a discussion about, our healthcare system can extend our life so much now. We can treat so much and keep you alive. But then the question becomes quality of life. And, what's the quality of that extension? And so I think a lot of people get on board with the idea that you might choose when you want to leave. But then, the actual reality of it is a much harder situation because you've got to, you're telling everyone and you're having these big discussions around it. But it hasn't come up a lot for me simply because it's not legal in North Carolina where I'm at.
Everyone, Keenagers, telling a new story about aging by Dr. Corinne Auman. Corinne, anything we haven't talked about that you really want everybody to know?
I just think aging is living. Aging is not something we can avoid. You see all the anti-aging ads and creams and different things. And, this is a battle we can't win. So this is a journey that we should all look forward to and try to, just like we would plan a vacation or plan any sort of experience that we wanted to enjoy, let's plan for it, let's prepare, and then let's have the best possible journey that each of us can have.
Absolutely. I think that what you said was so amazing when you say, somewhere between 55, 60, 65, all the way to 95, we call it aging. And each one of these decades needs something else from us. Mm-hmm. And to have this opening of just being with whatever shows up for us. And I remember I was talking to a friend of mine who is about 15 years kind of older than me. And as she was going through her aging conversation, she went, she passed through a breast cancer and many, many, many other issues. And then was also taking care of her ill husband and sisters and all of them, and watched them go through this pass away. And I remember one day I was kind of like, complaining about the pain in my body and everything. And she just looked at me and she said, "We're going to go through this. Might as well. Let's just do it gracefully, Foojan." And that stayed in my mind, which is, let's figure out how to do this gracefully.
Yeah. And if we do that, we will have done it well.
Yes. How could people find you?
So my website is my name, CorinneAuman.com. And there you can find links to all my social media as well as the book.
Well, it was wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you so much for everything that you shared, because it was really close to my heart and my experience, kind of, let's say, daily.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're all doing it. Aging is cool. We're all doing it.
Yes. Absolutely. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye. Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy, developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine, is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.